Welcome to Credit Strategy HQ, where we break down the credit strategy framework and help viewers understand how lenders interpret a credit profile before any action is taken. Because one of the most misunderstood areas of a credit report involves collection accounts and what they actually represent inside the structure of a credit profile. And while many people immediately assume that collections simply damage a credit score, the credit strategy framework approaches collections differently by examining how they appear within the overall profile and how lenders may interpret them when evaluating risk. Because a collection account generally means that an original creditor transferred or assigned a debt to a third-party collection agency after a period of non-payment, and that collection agency then attempts to recover the outstanding balance. But within the credit report, the collection account becomes its own trade line that records the existence of the unresolved debt, the balance that is claimed to be owed, and the history associated with the account. And while the presence of a collection can certainly influence how a credit profile is viewed, it is important to understand that not all collections carry the same interpretation when lenders review a report, because lenders often evaluate patterns rather than isolated entries, meaning that a single small collection within an otherwise stable profile may be interpreted very differently from a profile that contains multiple recent collections alongside other risk indicators. And this is where the credit strategy framework becomes useful because it encourages viewers to interpret the profile structure rather than reacting emotionally to a single item appearing on the report. Since lenders often look at factors such as the age of the collection, whether the collection is still reporting activity, whether other accounts show stability, and whether the overall profile demonstrates consistent repayment behavior elsewhere. And this broader context helps determine how the collection contributes to the lender's perception of financial risk, because credit reports function as a timeline of financial behavior rather than a simple list of debts. And when lenders examine that timeline, they attempt to understand whether the collection represents an isolated past difficulty or whether it reflects a pattern of unresolved obligations that may still be affecting the borrower's financial stability. And another important concept involves the distinction between the original account and the collection account. Because once a debt is transferred to collections, the original account often appears on the report as charged off or closed, while the collection agency begins reporting the balance as a separate entry. And this can create confusion for many consumers who see two trade lines connected to the same obligation. But from an analytical perspective, the credit strategy framework focuses on how these entries interact with the rest of the profile rather than simply counting the number of negative marks, because the surrounding context within the report often influences how lenders interpret the significance of a collection account. And for example, if the rest of the credit profile shows stable revolving accounts, long-standing payment history, and moderate utilization levels, the presence of a single older collection may appear less predictive of future risk than a situation where the collection appears alongside high balances, recent delinquencies, or multiple unresolved accounts. And this is why the credit strategy framework emphasizes interpretation before action, because understanding the structural role of a collection within the broader profile can help individuals evaluate their situation more strategically rather than responding impulsively. And another factor lenders sometimes consider involves whether the collection continues updating activity, because a trade line that frequently updates may indicate that the obligation remains active or unresolved, whereas an older collection that has not reported changes for a long period may appear differently within the profile timeline. And although each lender may interpret these details slightly differently, the general principle remains that collections are not evaluated in isolation, but rather as part of the broader financial narrative recorded within the credit report. And this perspective helps viewers understand why the credit strategy framework places emphasis on analyzing the entire profile structure, including account age, utilization patterns, payment history, consistency, and the number of open accounts that demonstrate ongoing financial stability, because these elements collectively influence how lenders assess the overall reliability of the borrower. And when someone understands how collections interact with the rest of the profile, they gain a clearer view of how lenders may perceive the situation, which allows for more informed decisions regarding future financial actions. And this analytical mindset represents the central purpose of the credit strategy framework, which is to encourage viewers to interpret the structure of their credit profile before making decisions about disputes, payments, or new credit applications. Because the more clearly someone understands how lenders read a credit report, the more confidently they can evaluate their options and avoid actions that may unintentionally disrupt the stability of their profile.